Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we are back with another brand new Mattel Jurassic World Rebirth release, and this is definitely one of the most anticipated figures overall. We have the Tail Thrasher Spinosaurus. This one has been going in and out of stock on Walmart.com over the last few days, and I was lucky enough to grab this one the second it went up, so really happy to now have it here to take a look at, and I can tell you with confidence, this is a beast of a Spinosaurus, definitely much larger than the other one that I have here. You can see the Spino down there in the bottom right hand corner. Of course, when it comes to the Spinosaurus, that's what you would expect there to be on the box. And then here on the back, you can see the Spinosaurus, again, kind of some of the action features, as well as the Mosasaurus that is coming out on top of the Spino here on the back. So let's go ahead, pop this box open and check it out. So here is our Spinosaurus now released from its cardboard prison, and again looking really nice. I'm actually quite happy with the overall appearance, the overall size, as well as the heft of this one. It's actually quite heavy, definitely heavier than I was expecting. We go ahead and set it down, reposition the camera to get a nice look at it when it's standing, and again it does look really good. And actually when it comes to the tail, again we have like that paddle like tail on these newer Spinos for Rebirth. I'm impressed to see that the articulated joints aren't quite as much of a distraction as I initially thought they would be, because again you have the little bit of separation there in between that does look a little bit of like an eyesore, but like it's honestly not that bad when it comes to seeing it in person. It does kind of make the tail look a little bit short though compared to the way that it should be, especially when it comes to the other version of the Spinosaurus that's out. But if we get nice and close, we start taking a closer look at it and my camera focuses correctly, you can see that it actually has a little variation of color to the face. That's something I've kind of noticed when people were showing off theirs over the last few weeks, mostly, the people in Panama that had their figures fairly early. I noticed that there was kind of like some extra coloration on the face, and there's definitely like a reddish brown, sort of like a dry brushing that you see pretty much on the upper side of the head only, and you can see it start basically right around here, lead up here, kind of disappearing as you lead out toward the tip of the snout. But overall it definitely adds some nice depth and realism to the paint job of the figure, which I really like. The skin texture also looks very good, very vibrant. You can kind of see those small, almost sort of crests up there on the top of the head. We've got the nostrils sculpted out. The eye is painted with a yellow. Unfortunately, no black pupil. We just have the dark brown pupil of the body color. It doesn't look so bad, especially when you look at it from a distance. It doesn't really look that awkward or anything. The jaws, of course, articulate both the upper and lower jaws. I believe that has something to do with the action feature, but we can get inside the mouth here. Take a look at the teeth. The teeth look really good. They are now that softer material, so they have that nice, genuine, sharp look to them, which is a massive plus. They're painted with like a light yellowish tone of color, and you can see, again, we've got like that little hook in the jaw, sort of right there for the Spino. The mouth closes pretty decently, but again, we'll have to wait and see the action feature, I guess, to really appreciate all of that. You can see the detailing here on the lower jaw also looks quite nice. A little bit of extra skin kind of hanging off of the lower jaw right there. When we open the mouth, we've got the tongue in there, very nicely textured. Beautiful pinkish tones of color for the inside of the mouth, and you can see the entire inside of the mouth has that nice pinkish tone and some pretty decent detail. I feel like the detail on the upper side actually looks a little better than what I'm used to from Mattel. Definitely a little bit more detailed than your average Mattel figure usually has. As we move back here into the neck, you start to see some osteoderms and stuff pick up. You can also see a yellowish, very dark yellow, but a yellowish striping pick up that stripes down along the course of the body. The skin detail is gorgeous. You have very nice looking scale detail, as well as a ton of skin wrinkles and folds down here on the lower part of the neck. And if you move to the underside, you do have a lighter tone that you can see start in the throat, moving along the underside of the Spinosaurus. We also have that kind of like scoot-like, again, almost crocodilian sort of a look to the scales on the underside of the Spinosaurus. That lighter tone does lead down along the underside, but disappears as we lead basically into like the groin area area. And before I forget, there is the fax app code if you would like to add that to your collection. But as we move back up into the body, also we do have a little area of articulation here in the neck, which we can see the jaws snap when the neck moves left and right. There's no up and down, just left and right. But as you move back into the body, the skin detail continues to look really quite nice, quite crisp. We have some scoots kind of following along the upper back of the dinosaur before leading up into the sail, and I actually have to readjust the camera to get the sail. So as you move up into the sail, you can see that area as well is sculpted really nicely, definitely quite reminiscent to the way it looks on screen from what we've seen so far. There are a few kind of ridges poking up there out of the spines of our Spinosaurus, as well as that nice yellowish tone striping down and following along the upper part of the sail. There is an action feature button right back here, and of course we will get to that at some point in the near future with this review, but obviously that as well, again, is a little bit of an eyesore, but since we already do have another Spino that doesn't include that action feature, it's not so bad, of course, to have one that does. Moving back up here into the arms look nice and muscular. You can kind of make out the elbow back there. We have articulation in the arm forward and back really quite nicely. Go up pretty high and also out away from the body, so some nice posability with the arm. Leading down into the hands, we can see the fingers are sculpted nicely and the nails as well, but sadly the nails are unpainted. I don't even see a gloss coat or anything for the nails either. The arm is pretty much the standard material. I wasn't sure if it was going to be something softer like the rubber arms we sometimes get, but it's just the usual material from Mattel. As you move back into the leg, you could definitely see the musculature of the thigh quite nicely here. The scales look great. Again, quite a bit of different variation to the sizes of the scales as you move down, even some bumpier scales, almost like osteoderms. Moving down, we've got the knee right there, as well as the calf in the back. The leg articulates, of course, forward and back, but wow, that is super, super limited. That's crazy. So that's as far back as the leg goes on this side, which is pretty shocking for Mattel. And that's pretty much all it does going forward. So it just has this little bit of movement, which is kind of depressing when it comes to this version of the Spinosaurus. I absolutely expected more leg articulation. You do have a swivel in the ankle, but definitely unfortunate when it comes to the lack of mobility in the leg, because that is really going to hinder anybody trying to come up with different poses and display options for this version of the Spino. Moving down into the foot sculpt, we can see again we've got some scoots moving down the toes, some pretty nice scales leading down, and then the nails are painted with a nice glossy black. Actually, not even really painted. They're a different piece of material that you can see is actually applied to the underside of the foot, which then leads out into the claws. And we do have dew claws, but shocker, no paintwork for those. They do kind of have a satin shine slightly, but no paintwork. And then you move up into the tail, you've got a few kind of wrinkles down here in the bottom of the tail as you lead out into that paddle-like tail. Again, you've got more of that yellow leading out, which is really exciting to see so much color on this one leading the entire way out through the tail, definitely making this one, as far as the paint job goes, the superior of the two Spinos that are out so far. And then of course you also have the articulation of the tail, which has a nice left and right movement, but no up or down or anything like that. But the detailing of the tail looks really nice. You have some almost like fish-like scales leading out. They look very kind of fish-like or maybe lizard-like as you lead along. And then you have that kind of larger crocodilian, sort of softer look to the skin texture of the underside of the tail as you lead out. And then the Spinosaurus is going to pretty much look the same again from this side as it did on the first side. Same deal with the arm articulation, forward and back, out away from the body. But the leg is what I'm curious about. So again, that's it. That's all you get as far as the articulation on this one, except for the swivel in the ankles. And again, the tail and everything is going to look pretty much the same on this side as it did on the first side. As far as the action feature goes, so we can see again a nice left and right chomping action feature and some pretty cool sounds. So we'll try to do this a little quicker. So we can definitely hear some awesome chomping noises, Spino noises, and obviously see the action feature. But what you didn't see is at the same time that was going on, the tail was moving left and right. So we'll go ahead and do that again. That's actually super, super cool. It's very lifelike. I will say my Spino tends to want to fall toward its left, so the balance isn't the most incredible, but the action feature is super, super cool. Let's do it one more time. So obviously, the more you push it, the faster you push it. It seems like the faster it goes. But let's go ahead and attempt to get a measurement. Now I have the head turned slightly toward the dinosaur's right, so it's going to be tough to get the measurement. But you are looking at... Get that tail straightened out. I would say if the tail was completely straight, you can't see it right now, but I'd say it's about 21 inches roughly, or around the like 53.5 centimeter range. Again, the Spino's falling toward its left, so like I said, the balance is definitely not the greatest for this one. As far as a height goes, and I need to put more of the tape measure out, you are looking at about... one of the tops of the spines, about 9 3/4 inches, or just shy of 25 centimeters to the highest point of that Spinosaurus. For a size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Colovosaurus, Robert Muldoon, and the Collect A Human Being next to our Tail Thrasher Spinosaurus, and as you can see, it's definitely quite large. Absolutely significantly larger than the last Spinosaurus. And to give you a really good feel for the size of the Tail Thrasher Spinosaurus over the Spinosaurus Danger Set version, here are both of those different versions of the Spino. You can also see a drastically different tone of color for the primary body color, as the Tail Thrasher version is a lot darker than we had on the Spinosaurus Danger Set. But they look super cool next to each other, and again, I'm loving the fact that clearly we have two of the different variants of the Spinosaurus from Jurassic World Rebirth. Keeping my fingers crossed we get the other variant at some point. I don't know if the basic version is maybe the other variant or not. I'll have to look into that, but clearly we can see that we do have at least two of the different versions here with these Spinos, but just a very different size. Then when it comes to a size next to the older Mattel Spinosaurus, you can very clearly see that again, they're fairly similar in size, a little bit more bulkiness to the newer Spinosaurus, but overall pretty close in size between the two different versions. Then if we bring in a standard Wild Roar figure, we can very clearly see again a massive difference in size. We've also got a nice comparison here with the Lab Lockdown T-Rex, the Jurassic World Rebirth Tyrannosaurus, next to the Spinosaurus, again showing that these two do look pretty cool next to each other, but the Spino is clearly a bit larger. But if we bring in the Epic Roarin' T-Rex, you can see that that T-Rex is in pretty similar size to the Spinosaurus, maybe slightly larger, but not by a whole lot. Then if we bring in the Extreme Damage T-Rex, you can see that now we are a little bit smaller, I would say, than the Spinosaurus. And even though the Spinosaurus is quite large, we can see with the older release of the Indominus from Mattel, it is still not that large, as the Indominus is definitely bigger. So this brand new Mattel Jurassic World Rebirth Tail Thrasher Spinosaurus is definitely another really nice figure. Sculpt-wise, it is absolutely fantastic. And from what I can tell, very nicely replicates the Spinosaurus from Jurassic World Rebirth. And overall sports incredible skin texture throughout and a pretty cool action feature. I actually really quite like the action feature of this one. It's very lifelike. The movements look smooth. It just generally makes the dinosaur come to life when you start to kind of push on that button on the sail. And again, I really quite like it as a whole. Definitely a little bit different than some of the previous action features we've had from Mattel. But we also have some very impressive paintwork, I would say, for this one. Not the greatest in the world, but the fact that they've actually included noted, a little dry brushing, at least in the face, is definitely a really nice touch. I would have preferred a black pupil over the dark brown pupil, but that's not the end of the world. And again, we have color running all the way out onto the tail, which is a massive improvement on this one. Just wish we had painted nails on the hands, and of course dew claws would have been nice to have painted, but overall, again, the paint apps look really nice, the action feature looks really nice, the sculpt is absolutely incredible, it's got a really good size to it. The only big downside for this one is the lack of mobility in the legs. It again has super limited articulation in the legs and also slightly questionable balance, but outside of that, it's a very cool figure and definitely one that I highly recommend picking up. I will include a link in the description to walmart.com where I purchased mine. Again, it keeps going in and out of stock, so if it's not in stock when you click that link, just keep checking back. It should pop back up at some point very soon, and like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.